business builder camp, our group, one of the things we try to focus on, and it gets discussed in the mastermind groups a lot, is making sure the business that you're building really serves like your life and the life that you want to have, not the other way around for
I'll
you.
tell you what I told my high school guidance counselor. I want freedom of time, right? And that means that when we're done here in a few minutes, I can walk out that door and I can go hug my kids and go play ball with my son for 30 minutes before my next meeting. For me, I get to work from home. I get to have that freedom to where if I need to take a day off, I've got a team that can help me do it. But I would say the one thing that I do to make sure this business serves me, because I know that, and I see this happen a lot, I know that hiring massive amounts of people, especially if you don't have a strong leadership team to support them, can actually make business harder. So we are always looking at ways to increase efficiency or automate things or bring technology in so that we can stay a lean team and still produce at a very high level.
Business builders, today on the Business Builder Way podcast, we are joined by Ryan Englin. Ryan is the founder of Core Matters, and Core Matters is a company that helps people, businesses in the trades, in particular, construction companies, subcontractors, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, earthwork, general contractors, to hire people faster. So he wrote a book, Hire Better People Faster. You can look it up on Amazon. You can look it up on Audible. I like Ryan. He is like blue collar at the core. He's a servant, leader type of a guy. He is thinking about serving all of you first and giving good information that'll help you hire better people. The other thing I love about Ryan and what you'll hear in this podcast is he is the kind of guy that believes hiring is a long game. Having a hiring system is where it's at if you want to scale your company. He believes it has a lot to do with more of who you're being than tactics. So he has solid ideas about looking at your website and what does it say to your potential new hires, being the employer of choice in your market. And so I think you're really going to love this interview. The other thing about Ryan that I want to share with you is he is going to join us for one of our virtual campfires. And in that virtual campfire, if you like this interview, what you're going to get is you'll get him sharing a bit of his story of building his own business, including what it was like getting his first client, including what it was like having some partners that didn't work out. So you'll get some of the story of business building, but you're also going to have an expert in-house around the campfire who can help you with any kind of problems you have about employee retention, about building a culture where people want to stay, building a culture that's attractive. So I hope you can join us for our upcoming virtual campfire with Ryan Englin and enjoy this episode. If it's helpful to you, please hit like, rate, share, wherever it is that you're finding your podcast. We'd be grateful, and this is how we get our message out to others. And as always, go get them. Welcome to the Business Builder Way podcast, where we help business builders grow leadership skills and wisdom and stay grounded through hero stories. So let's get after it. Ryan, thanks for joining us. I'm looking forward to this conversation with you today.
Oh, Wayne, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So, on the Business Builder Way, we work to have conversations with people to help understand their business builder story, how they got here, how they got into entrepreneurship, the goods, the bads, lessons learned. In your case, then also you have some expertise that I know will be helpful to the business builders when it comes to, and of course, it's right on your shirt, hire better people faster. And most entrepreneurs would love to hire better people faster, consistently with, maybe not a guarantee of results, but predictability of results. So I'm looking forward to both sides, your story and your area of expertise.
I'll follow your lead.
Okay, good. Perfect. Yeah. So tell us about Ryan, the boy, Ryan, the 10 or 11-year-old, what was going on that might have shown us that you were going to become an entrepreneur and build your own company?
Well, I had no idea that's what I was going to do, but I grew up in a blue collar household. My dad was an owner operator. And I remember nights, weekends, was hanging out with him down at the shop. He'd put a broom in my hand and have me sweep or whatever it was when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. That was his thing. And he always struggled with building a good team, always struggled with hiring people that would stick around, that would perform well. And I saw all that happen. And so as I got to high school, I remember telling a guidance counselor one time, I said, I don't care what it is that I do, so long as I have control over my time. Because that was the one thing my dad never had. I remember it was the 80s. He had one of those big brick phones. You remember those things like a separate battery pack and stuff?
Yeah.
Because he was on call all the time. It was the 80s. He was walking around with a cell phone, which I think was like $10 a minute. But if they needed him, that $10 was worth it. So he could get in there and fix it because he was the only one that could do it.
Owner operator of what, Ryan? What kind of business?
So it was manufacturing plant. And so he had to be proficient in plumbing, electrical, hydraulics, mechanical. Like he had to be proficient in all of those things. I mean, I remember him teaching me to weld when, the math that the gear wouldn't even fit. He's like, turn away. So he had to be proficient in all those skills, and he had people on his team that were proficient in those things. And made plastic milk bottles, of all things.
Okay.
So he was in plastic.
Interesting.
And so I told my high school counselor that, and they laughed at me and said, "You just need to go to college and figure it out later." So I did. I didn't know any better. My dad wanted me to go to college because he didn't want me to end up like him, owner operator of a business, had partners that had already been incredibly successful. And so they weren't involved. They were just more of the money men. And so I went to college, did that, and thought I'm going to go corporate because at corporate, I'll have control of my time. I'll have control of my career. I had none of that in corporate. Turns out corporate is just a big game, which is probably why a lot of business owners left that to go do this. But I did that for a decade, and I was in banking, and I'd build teams and I'd watch teams get restructured because of corporate restructuring. Or the thing that I always hated was I would train up a couple of top performers and then my boss would put them on a different team. And I'm like, wait a minute, those are my people. They're like, yeah, but you trained them so well, they're going to go work for someone else that can't train. I got so frustrated with that. I finally said, you know what? I'm going to go back to, I'm going to go start my own business. And when I started my own business, it was a marketing company because I had this belief that my dad's problem was that he never had enough new business. He never had enough repeat business because I had been told that cash solves a lot of problems and cash comes from revenue. I've been an entrepreneur long enough now to know that's not always true, but that's what I believe. So I thought if I go start a marketing company to help people like my dad, contractors, is what I started with because I was too small to handle these big manufacturing contracts, B2B stuff. So I started working with home service contractors and I loved it. I'm like, these are my people. And then a couple years in, I got phone calls left and right, cancel services. I don't need more leads, turn off the ads, do this, do that. And I started digging. I said, what's going on? And every one of them had the same story. I don't need more business. I need more people. So I took my background in interviewing, hiring, sourcing, those kinds of things that I learned in corporate, and combined that with this belief that recruiting is just a marketing activity.
Sure.
So if we take recruiting away from HR and we give it to our marketers, it's so much more effective. So that's what I did. I went to all my clients and I said, hey, let me market for new technicians for you. And we had astounding results, like almost unbelievable results. And it was so easy because there were very few contractors in the space that were doing the same thing. So if you were thinking this way, I mean, you were at the top of every list because you were optimizing your job ads. You were doing all the things they teach you in marketing, but nobody else was doing that. So I did that for a little while. And I had this idea that, hey, when they need people, I'll get them people. When they need customers, I'll get them customers, and I'll do both. And it just wasn't sustainable. It wasn't scalable. It was way too hard to build. I mean, it's two separate businesses, really. So I said, okay, we're going to stop on the lead gen. We're going to focus on the recruiting and the hiring. But then here's what I found out. I could send them candidates, but now they didn't know how to interview them. So now I had to teach them how to interview. And then they'd interview them and they'd stumble over the offer. So now I had to teach them how to make offers. Then the guy would show up on the first day of work and they wouldn't be ready for him. So now the onboarding experience was horrible. And let's say they did onboard him well. 90 days, 180 days later, the guy doesn't feel like he's got a connection with his supervisor or his team lead or the owner of the company, and he quits and he goes somewhere else where he feels like he'll be wanted more. So then we had to look at employee engagement. And so over time, I built this entire process. We called it the CoreFit hiring system that helps you attract, hire, and retain the right people that align to your culture, that are bought into your vision, that want to do it your way, who love the industry and love your customers, and they want to be around for a long time. And so we started teaching clients how to do this, essentially how to fish for new technicians, new people. And that's all we do now. We've been doing that for over a decade. And I wrote a book a couple years ago that details the process, talks about the system, and it's just been a great ride since.
Yeah, and so maybe somebody's listening and they're already thinking like, I want to hire better people faster, and what you're saying about, okay, yeah, we got to fill the funnel with people, but then how do we interview them? Maybe somebody already wants to know what the book is. So the book is Hire Better, right? Hire Better People Faster, right?
That is it. Hire better people faster. Yes.
And available on Amazon or anywhere you get books. Audible too,
It is on Audible. You have to listen to me talk for 5.5 hours, but it is on Audible.
right?
Uh,
And always the best when we have the author speaking. So
yeah.
so business builders, if you want to just get those insights from Ryan, he's put it all in book form. And then you have podcast, Titans of the Trades, right?
Yep.
There's
Titans of the Trades, where we interview people that are just making it happen inside of the trades, whether that's owners that have figured out that being able to step out of the business a little bit and actually run a business and create an asset. Sometimes we just scheduled someone. It's a woman heavy equipment operator. She talks about how do we get more women into the trades. So anybody that's really making an impact in the trades and helping us overcome that labor crisis or even solve the challenges that most people in the trades are having, we invite them on to the show and they tell their story and give a couple of tidbits every once in a while.
when you think trades, can you give me the top, I don't know, five or six trades that you think of that are your
Yeah.
listeners or your
So think construction. There's a whole bunch of stuff that
Yep.
happens in construction, but you got your electricians, your plumbers, your HVAC or mechanical. A lot of times there's specific trades for manufacturing as well. That's, like I said before, you got your millwrights and other things that happen there. So anybody that's working with their hands, getting dirty, working with their hands, whether they're building or servicing something, that is the trades for us.
Got it. So you start, you're in corporate, as you said. I want to go to the CoreFit hiring process a bit more, but I'm going
Yeah,
to bounce out. I'm going to bounce back. So you started your business, you started Core Matters, you started down the path of, and I guess in 2011 is when you started with marketing and lead gen. Is that,
that's
I'm
it.
tracking that right? Okay.
Yeah, so think traditional marketing, email, websites, SEO, content, video. We did all of that.
14 years ago, already a lot different for sure than it is today, right?
Yeah.
Although some of those old things work really well now because people aren't focusing on them.
Well, apparently the mullet and bell bottoms are back, so what's old is new and all that.
It's not back anymore. I think it's almost, the mullet is almost out because I just heard I've got a almost 17-year-old son, Thomas, who wants to go into the trades. He wants to go into earthwork. I think I told you that when you and I talked
Mm.
off camera. But he said in the pool 2 nights ago to his sister, he goes, "This is it for the mullet. Last time going to get a haircut. So next haircut is no more mullet." So
Well, my
I
son's
don't know.
8 and a bunch of his friends all have mullets. So,
It could end next week, I'm telling you.
yeah, I'm sure it could. I'm sure it could.
So 2011 though, marketing was different, but that's how you started. So 2011, so thinking of your business builder story, you see your dad in the shop, you don't really want to be like that. I mean, you probably want to be like that in lots of ways because like your story, I'm pointing behind me on video, but if people are listening on audio wouldn't see the point. I've got coal miners behind me, and this
Mm.
isn't where I called you from the other day. So I've got coal miners behind me coming up out of the ground, and those are independent coal miners here in Pennsylvania. Very kind of small group of people worked in the anthracite coal field, which was hard coal. I grew up with my grandfather. He just passed not that long ago, but he was the owner with two other guys of an independent coal mine. And much like what you talked about, they did everything. Like if the generator was down, they fixed it. They were off the grid. They weren't calling somebody else in to do it. Like
Mm,
miners and farmers can kind of do it all
yep.
because they have to, right?
Hmm.
And as you said, I a lot of memories with my grandfather are working, going with him to the coal mine because it was the weekend and they needed to pump water out of the coal mine and that there was nobody else going to do it.
Yeah.
So I get that. And so that's part of your story. You go to college 2011. What was it like um striking out on your own and leaving the corporate environment? I don't know, did you have family at that time? Did you have children? Was it like scary? You're like, I'm going to
No,
become
it's
an independent.
scary.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead with
was,
that.
so I had left corporate and I stayed in banking for a few years, independent, got into the mortgage world. And so went to work for some mortgage banks. And I was married at the time, no kids. In fact, at that time, we didn't want kids. And I had a business partner when I first started. That lasted about all of 8 months. And I remember we took the wives out to dinner because we were going to sell them on this idea of starting this company and what we were going to do
Yeah.
and everything else. And I remember sitting at the table, and this was probably, oh gosh, it was probably sometime around November, December of 2010. It's about
Mhm.
10 months before we started, before I quit my job. And I remember them saying, if you can put 12 months of expenses in a savings account, you can quit your job. That's what the wives agreed on.
Okay.
And I will tell you, there is nothing that a motivated, driven man with a goal can't do. So August 31st of 2011 was my last day working for someone else besides me. And so we did it in just over 9 months. I was able to make that happen. And
Mhm.
then the first year, the first year we were in business, I think my take home pay was like 14 grand because I'd never run a
Mhm.
marketing company before. I didn't know what I was doing. And
Right.
I was of that belief that, oh, well, I can't charge a lot because that's not that I don't have that credibility and that authority behind me. And our first website I ever sold was $499. Uh,
Yeah.
and it was
Wow.
a custom design, custom built website. I had a
Right.
contractor overseas helping. It was crazy. And so we just kept growing that. And then, like I said, my business partner left about 8 months. That was a brutal 8 months because it was really good until the money things happened. And when we didn't make enough, there was
Before it
fights
got
all the
tight.
time, all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was rough. It was rough. In fact, we got to the point after he left, I got another business partner. And then when he left, when that broke up, my wife said, if you ever take on another business partner, the next phone call you to make is to a divorce attorney because I'm not going through that mess again.
Your wife has had some she had some good advice there about the savings
Yeah.
and the
So no more
partners.
business partners. I almost took one on a couple years ago and she said no.
We've already talked about this,
Yeah. Yeah. So
right?
she put her foot down.
First website you built, how did you get that client? Like, and what was it?
I was networking. I didn't know how to get clients. So
Yeah,
I was going to these breakfast networks. I mean, it might have been a BNI or a private thing or something like that, but I was just
sure.
going to breakfast networks. And he happened to be there. He happened to be in the market for a website. And I was like, I'll build you one. And the interesting thing is that was a pest control company and the relationship grew. He was a client for almost 9 years.
In
So
Nashville?
no, no, no. He was in Phoenix.
Okay.
I was actually born and raised in Phoenix, so I only moved out to
Okay.
Nashville a couple years ago.
Gotcha. To the hub of many things entrepreneurial.
It seems that way.
Yeah, a lot going on in Nashville. So that's the first client. And then about how far into it did you make this decision? I'm going to focus on recruiting and teaching people how to recruit.
It was in 2015, so it was 4 years later. It was 4 years, and it was a point where, I mean, I was down and out. Like I was, it was one of those things where over a 60-day period, we lost 85% of our revenue.
Mhm.
And when they're all saying, I can't take these leads on, I'm booking them 3 weeks, a month out. Like I can't take that. I'm not going to spend the money on that. It was hard for me to overcome that. And I just got to a point where I was desperate. And I said, well, let me dig into what's really going on because it can't be me. And that's when I found out. And I'll never forget the look on the owner's face. It was an HVAC contractor. It's Phoenix in July. They're booking
Right.
3 months out, or sorry, 3 weeks out, booking 3 weeks out for a broken air conditioner in Phoenix in July. Nobody
Right.
waits. So
Yeah,
people
pretty
would take the
unhappy
call,
people.
and then as soon as they found someone that could get there sooner, they would cancel it. This was happening. But I'll never forget,
Right.
it was a third generation. Mom and dad were there, the daughter was there, and I said, you know what? I think I can help you solve this problem. I knew nothing about recruiting at the time, but
Mhm.
I had this belief that it was marketing, and so I should be able to figure it out. And I'll never forget mom's look. She's just overwhelmed with joy that someone said, I can help you solve this problem. And she goes, can you really
Mhm.
do it? And I'm shaking my head, yes. And the whole time thinking, what am I doing?
Sure.
Imposter
Sure.
syndrome like mad.
Right.
Uh, so I took a week and I figured out how to write job ads and work with job boards and get the software set up and everything else. And I spun it up for them. And 3 weeks later, they hired 4 technicians
I
in
think
3 weeks.
that's a well that but that's a Ryan, I do have some people who would listen to this who are coaches, consultants, or would build an advisory firm like you. One of the things my mentor Warren Lewis taught me was in situations like that, take the money. And he didn't mean it in like he didn't mean that as in take the money because money is more important than results or something, because I questioned him on that from a values point of view. And he said, Wayne, I know you. If you take their money, you're going to help them. Like you will do
You figure
whatever
it
it
out.
takes to not feel like some sort of shyster that took their money. So you need to take the money and then therefore you will figure it out. Now you may,
Mhm.
what he told me then in the beginning is he said, Wayne, you may not decide that you want to take on another project like that ever again, but I'm not concerned that you're going to like defraud people or something. So
Yeah.
sometimes we have to do that, and just do whatever it takes to solve the problem for the client, I
Well, at
believe.
that time, so 2015, I had a baby girl at home. So she was
You're
an
right.
old,
I get this
and
too.
all of a
Yeah.
sudden I'm
Uh-huh.
like,
Yeah.
I got to figure this out or I got
You're
to
a
go get a
motivated
job or
guy.
something.
Yeah. Right. Right. Is that a time where, I think for entrepreneurs, this is an important question. Have you had a time where you considered going back and getting a job? I think most people do at some point.
Yeah, I've thought about this a couple of times, not recently, but when times were really tough. When I get that year and my CPA says, "Hey, you owe 18 grand in taxes because you didn't pay any all year," and I look at my savings account and it's zero. And I'm like, do they take credit cards? Like when I'm in that position, I
Right.
remember sitting there thinking, you know what? I think it might be better for me to go back and just let this go. And I'm a man of faith, and there was always a roadblock that God put in my way to say, you're not going back. I got bigger
Mm.
plans for you. You're not going back. There was always something that came up. But I always thought about it. I said, I'll get into corporate sales. That's what I would do.
Mhm.
Because I love building relationships. I love people. Uh,
Right.
you know, I I don't like the traveling now. They got little kids at home, but I used to love to
Right.
travel. Right. So I was always
Right.
thinking, I'm going to do sell in manufacturing because I knew that world a little bit. I'm going to go sell these multi-million dollar rehab packages from Hewlett Packard or these, big manufacturing companies that are building these machines for Intel and whatnot. And I thought about doing that, but then there was always a roadblock that said no. Always no, it's just
Yeah. Well, and then
stick it out.
evidently you paid attention to the roadblocks, or you saw it for what it was, and you
Yeah.
allowed the roadblock to have its intended effect.
I would be lying to you if I say I didn't look for ways to get around the roadblock.
Sure.
But yes,
Sure.
I got to the point where I'm like, it's not worth going over. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I'd have another challenge or another setback. But I would say one of our core values is always improve. Over here at Core Matters, we always want to look for ways to improve, and that's a personal core value of mine. So I look for learning a lesson in everything that happens, good, bad, and different. I look for the lesson. How can I learn from this? Because then it's not a waste.
When did you make the decision to hire your first person? Can you remember that?
Yeah, so it was actually before. It was probably 2012. I hired my first person, and I remember being scared because here I am thinking that's my money. Right? I had that belief
Hmm.
that's my money, but I also
Hmm.
knew from my corporate days that a bad employee can do really bad damage. And so I, at the time, created the interview process that I always wanted to create in corporate, but corporate would never let me. So we created this interview process and it was amazing. It's actually what we teach our clients today.
Yeah,
Um,
that's cool.
but we actually had, we spent so much time with them that by the time we hired them, we knew they were going to work out. And when I first started this, I told people you need to spend 8 hours with every new hire before you hire them. That's how you get to know them. And you can
How do
imagine what
you
every contractor on the planet was thinking. I don't have
Oh,
eight
for
hours,
sure.
right?
So I think I'll ask you the question that people probably ask you in that moment. How do you uh, find? So you want me, uh, the hiring party, to spend 8 hours with a candidate. How do you? The objection probably is people would never spend that amount of time with me. People that are looking for a job are not going to spend 8 hours with me. What is your response to that, Ryan?
I mean, the objection is usually I don't have the time. I'm short staffed. I don't have the
I don't
time.
have the time, but what about the people that I'm trying to hire? Do they have the time? Are they
You know what?
willing
It's
to?
it's interesting. I would say that most people, when they're being honest with me, they don't really care what the candidate's going through. And that's a big part of our process now is to walk in their shoes for a minute. But I have run into so many entrepreneurs, hiring managers, recruiters that really don't care what the candidate's going through.
Or they haven't thought about it. They just hasn't even occurred to them.
Yeah, it just hasn't even occurred to them. And when we spell it out for them and we walk them through what we call the candidate journey, they go, oh my God, I had no idea. And it's kind of like it removes the blinders, it opens their eyes and they go, that's why I've got to call them quickly. That's why I've got to spend time letting them get to know me, not just me getting to know them. That's why I shouldn't just be selling the company. I need them to sell me a little bit. And they just see the relationship that collaboration, because that's really what the interview is. It's a collaboration. Because if you can't collaborate there, you can't work together.
Right, right,
And
right.
uh, and they see it for what it is, and it just changes the way they approach not only the problem, but the way they're solving that problem, which is bringing on a great new employee.
So, and now I'm going to bounce, a little bit from story and building your company to we already are going there in terms of current day. So we have people listening, they would like to hire better folks, and you've got this core fit process. What are some of the key components or chunks of the core fit process that would benefit business builders listening to this?
Well, what I found over the years is that solving this problem is a leadership issue. I already told you that recruiting should not belong to HR. Recruiting is a marketing activity. Interviewing shouldn't belong to HR. Interviewing is a sales activity. Get your sales team involved in helping you figure that out. Uh, Even things like onboarding shouldn't belong to HR. That's employee experience. So, who's really invested in the well being of your team? That's who should be involved in onboarding. And it's almost always the owner, it's almost always the leadership team that's involved in that. So, I want them involved in the whole thing. But what I found is that if I cannot create opportunities for them to take a breath and just breathe and create some margin inside of their world, just a little bit, all the rest of the stuff gets disregarded as I don't have time. It's too much work. It's too hard. What results am I really going to get, anyways? And they continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting to get different results. And I ask them this question: why is it that we always have time to do it over, but we never have the time to do it
Mm,
right?
mm,
And so
good one.
getting their mind wrapped around what this really entails and the scope and intensity of this project and what it's going to mean to when they have the system in place, what it's going to mean to their business and their confidence level, their ability to just know I can go get great people, or maybe they've even got a line of people waiting to join their team. I mean, these are all outcomes that we expect when they implement the system.
And the system, and you described some of this when you and I spoke another day prior to recording. The system, that is what you teach these clients. You go in, you said it's a leadership challenge. It requires a change in kind of thought process by leadership, shifting it to marketing, shifting it to being a sales, shifting it to being I like that, like an employee experience. It's not dissimilar from customer experience when they got onboarded. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're creating these mind shifts. but you come beside these companies, you and your team, come beside these companies, teach them the process, walk with them through the process, help them do it in the beginning. And I believe you told me it's probably a couple years before it really is dialed in, and you have them with a real recruiting, hiring, onboarding, retention machine of their own. But that's what you're trying to build, right? You're like in it for the
Yeah.
long haul.
Yeah. So our process, we call it the Core Fit Blueprint. It is a 7 phase process. There's 7 distinct phases. And phase 7 is, I mean, that's what we're after is this ability to scale confidently. And that's what phase 7 is you have all the tools, all the structure, all the people, all the resources in place that you can scale with confidence. You can go take on that new job and know you can staff it. You can lose a key person or even a group of people and know that you can replace them. You know that regardless of what happens in the business with taking on more business or needing more people or even losing people, that you can confidently solve the problem because you have all the tools and the processes in place and you're proficient at using them. It's not just here's a tool, Wayne, good luck. It's no, we're going to come alongside you. We're going to train you until you're proficient. I, uh, I liken a lot of what we do to fishing. Right? I want to learn to fly fish right now. It's something I've been doing on my own. And will I learn it on my own? Probably, eventually, if I do it enough. Or I can hire a guide and he can show me some of the things that took him a lifetime to learn, and he can teach
Mm,
it to me in one outing. Doesn't
mhm.
mean that I'm going to be an expert at fly fishing. I'm going to forget. I'm going to regress. I'm going to, things are going to happen. And so the next time I go out and buy a guide, and I do that for, I don't know, 10, 15 fly fishing trips. And then eventually I'm like, I know how to choose the right fly. I know how to tie everything. I know where to put the, where to put it. I know how to cast it without hurting myself. I know all these things, but it took me a long time to get proficient, have that muscle memory and those habits that I need. And that's the piece that's different from what a lot of other consultants will do. They'll give you the tools, but they're not going to teach you how to be proficient in them. And that is a big part of our process.
So have you been on one of these fly fishing trips with a guide that you're referring to?
I have not yet. I have not
When
yet. I've done
when
deep
is it
sea
scheduled?
fishing.
What is next?
Yeah, you're right. I got to get it scheduled. Uh,
It's a good example, but yeah.
yeah, but I did deep sea fishing and I was like, there's no way I'm going to figure that out on my own. So I hired a guide and I did that. And that was a blast. And I learned a ton. I learned a ton.
Not to
I could
mention you
never
need a
do it
boat.
again on my own, though. Not yet.
Yeah, gotcha. So I think it would be a common question that people would want to know in 2025. How do I fill the top of the funnel with good, and I guess how to define good candidates is a whole nother.
You got to
I'm
start
guessing
there, right? To find the good
that's
one.
something that you dig into, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. We do that. We call it a core fit profile. It's really understanding the behaviors and motivations, not just the work they have to do, but the right kind of person. But in 2025, so Gallup comes out with a, I don't know, Gallup? Familiar with them? So
Like
this
the people that do Gallup
annual,
polls, a Gallup
yeah,
poll.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
employee polls
Mhm.
and surveys. They just came out with the 2025 State of the Global Workforce report. And in the United States, 31% of our employees are engaged. 31. So 69% of the people that work for anybody listening, 69%, 7 out of 10 are not engaged. Doesn't mean they're actively disengaged, they're just not engaged, which means that 69%, if the right opportunity comes up, if the right opportunity flashes on their social, if their friend makes the right phone call, they're going to entertain an offer from someone else.
Yeah.
They are not going to the job boards. They're not on Indeed. Just for everybody to know right now, here's a secret about Indeed. Indeed is for the unemployed. And when you're in a market with 4.1% unemployment, the unemployed are probably unemployable. Now, I
Hmm.
can't say that is true for everyone. There are people that sometimes
Sure.
end up down on their luck.
Mhm.
But for the most part, this is why you have a love-hate relationship with Indeed. You get lots of candidates, but no one that you want to hire. So what you have to do in 2025, and I think it isn't going to matter what year you listen to this, you have to become attractive to the 69% of people that are open but not looking. You have to become attractive to them. This is where marketing comes in. We call it being the employer of choice, which means you are the company in the marketplace that everyone wants to work at. And when they get there, they fight to stay. When you have those two things, you will have people calling you saying, hey, I know you're not hiring, but I really want you to take my resume so that when you are, I'm at the top of the list. And I know there's contractors, there's probably people of all sorts of industries listening right now going, that will never happen. And I have dozens and dozens of case studies on my website telling you otherwise, because it does. This does happen. But you have to think about marketing your company, not just for business development and lead generation, but marketing your company to hire people. Most companies will say their biggest challenge right now is people, not lead gen.
So what I hear you saying is it's common that me or anybody else, anybody who owns a company would want to ask you about tactics. What are the tactics, or what is the right job board to go to, or how much do I have to pay? And it's not that any of those things aren't important, but what I hear you saying is that it's like deeper than that. It's and core matters, your company, like at the core, we need to be the the company to work for, the employer of choice. I have a client who is in HVAC, and he's in a town where there's a big helicopter manufacturing facility, and they are like known as the place to go work for people in a blue collar trades, engineering type, any of those type of backgrounds. And
Yeah.
he really has it as a mission to be a destination employer, to be the employer of choice. And I guess at some level, that company during this owner's lifetime is likely to employ more people, like bigger numbers. But I love his mission to say, whether we have 150 or 200 people on our team, or maybe we have 500 someday, those guys might have thousands, but for this town, this is the place where everybody in the trades or a blue collar background would want to work. And that's very much what I hear you saying, that's important. It's an identity thing.
Absolutely. And I would argue that most people listening right now don't have a hiring problem as much as they have a retention problem. And if you don't believe me, here's a real quick, easy check. Call your CPA and say, how many W-2s did we issue last year? How many people did we have employed on 1231? And I can almost guarantee you with 100% certainty that everybody listening will say, I issued more W-2s than I had people. I mean, I'm in that bucket. I issued more W-2s last year than I have people at the end of the year. And this is what I do for a living. So we're not immune from it. We don't have a hiring problem as much as we have a retention problem. And if you can't find good people, it's probably because you're not attractive to good people. Now, I know that might be hard to hear, but if good people, A players, are not going to come and play for a C team. And if your marketing and your online presence and your Glassdoor reviews, your employee testimonials, all of those things say you're a C player, you're a C company, A players are going to look at that and say, I'm not going to play. I want to go play for a team that's full of A players because I don't want to pick up the slack. And the reality is, most of the times when we talk to contractors, they have a ton of A players, but they don't know how to get credit for it. So they look like a C team, but really they could get credit for it. They just think differently. They put too much effort, and here's a tactic. They put way too much effort into their website and their online marketing to appeal to their customer. And the things that a customer wants are usually in direct conflict to the things an employee wants.
Right.
So you take a mechanical contractor or an HVAC contractor and you say, their website, you go to it and it says, we are the HVAC company that every customer loves to use because we're on time, we're affordable, we're available 24/7, we're on call when you need us, we've got emergency services. And the employee the candidate's looking at that and going, okay, so you're affordable, which means you don't pay as much. You probably don't have good benefits. You're going to take me away from my family. I don't get to watch the games on Sunday. Like, this is what's going through their head. So in an effort to appeal to a customer base, we're alienating the best employees.
Yeah. What a great shift, and what a great thought-provoking question that brings up for people to look in the mirror, look at their website and say, is that the case? So I appreciate that. So Ryan, who is your ideal client? Who are the people that you want to work with now? And then my following question will be, and who does the book appeal to? Because maybe it's a broader audience
Yeah.
than your ideal
Yeah.
client.
Well, the book question's easier. That one appeals to all entrepreneurs. It was written with this lens of blue
Sure.
collar entrepreneurs because they're high volume hiring, need skilled technicians and those kinds of things. But we've had insurance companies that have called us and said, "I read the book. Can you help us?" And I can't. I don't work with insurance companies because it's a whole different world. But the book was written for any entrepreneur that's struggling with this. The rules, the principles, the tools that are in there work beautifully for everyone. As far as who we work with, there are two things we look at. Number one is, do they have the right mindset? Are they open to outside the box thinking, to different strategies, to different ways of doing things, things that they might even go to their buddies or their advisors with, and they're going to get laughed at, right? Because some of this stuff is unknown territory, and that's why it works. Blue ocean
Sure.
strategy, right? So that's one. The other one is, do they have a crew or a team mentality? See, we've struggled with a lot of service contractors because there's a group of service contractors that are very much about, where do I place on the board? It's all about my individual performance. I don't think about others. As a service manager, it's my individual performance. Less worried about my team, more worried about me. And organizations that have very I-centered mentality and they're very
Mm-hmm.
focused there are going to struggle with our program. We teach things like empathy and caring and walking in their shoes and understanding what they're going through. And when you don't think about your fellow worker that way or your employee that way, it's really hard to make that shift.
Right.
And so we found that commercial contractors, construction contractors, service contractors, where it's a team effort. So we've got one right now where the technician goes out, figures out the problem, then the service manager comes in, sells the solution, and then they
Okay.
send a team of technicians out to fix it. They are very much like, if one part's not working, there's a problem. So we have to
Mm-hmm.
think very much about the crew and the team. And so for us, those are the best clients. And we love working in the blue collar space. Like, it's just, it's no frills, no fluff. Like, we're just gonna, if we're mad, we're
Sure.
gonna say it. Nobody's gonna have to
How
guess.
how big is the company that you're working with? How many
I
people are they hiring? Round
Yeah, we
numbers.
do. We focus on positions that require high volume. So I would say smallest companies we usually work for, and they're going to be in the 40 to 50 employee range.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if they're not hiring a lot, if they're only hiring one or two people a year, we're probably not the best fit. Like, go read the book, grab some nuggets. But we just started working with a company that needs to hire 50 people by the end of the year. Like, that's fun for us. We're going to get a lot done. But we typically don't work with companies that are over 500. Too much politics, too much bureaucracy.
Sure. Yeah. So that's like your
So like
sweet
50 to
spot.
500 is our good. Our real sweet spots like that 100 to 250. Like, those are
Got it.
golden for us.
If a business owner says that's me, I have those problems, I'm guessing that part of your, let's just call it is sales process, but really sales is not a dirty word to me. It's about us matching. Am I a good fit? Are you a good fit? Are you going
Yeah.
to be able to help me with the kind of problems I have? So your sales process, I would assume, probably involves some initial a deep dive conversation to understand whether it's a good fit. So what does that first step look like, and how does somebody get in touch with you or fill out
Yeah.
an interest form or whatever the case may
So
be?
I would say, go to our website, corematters.com, and take a look at our process. And if that process sings to you and you're like, yeah, I want this. I want to be the employer choice. I want to optimize my team. I want to align my team to processes. I want them thinking about the future. If you look at that and you go, that's what I want, then that's usually a good qualifier. So our process would be, you'd book a short 30-minute call with me. Book it through the website. It's a 30-minute call. This is just getting to know you. We're not going to talk prices. We're not going to talk solutions. We're not talking any of that. I just want to make sure we can create a connection. And if we can create a connection and we like it and we think, hey, we like each other, then what I'm going to do is schedule a call for you to bring the rest of your leadership team in. Because I know they may not have to say yes, but any one of them could absolutely say no and make it really hard to get results. So let's bring your leadership team in. We're going to sit down for an hour. We're going to talk through what they're dealing with, what their challenges and goals are. And then if at the end of that, everything looks good, I know what I need to know by then. We'll schedule a time to sit down and talk about what the solution looks like.
Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about the business today? So the business today, here you are, you're a guest on a podcast. You connected with me through somebody who's booking you as a guest on podcast. So I know that this part of what you're doing is getting out, spreading the message, trying to be helpful, be of service,
Yeah.
um, find new people to talk to here. So that's clearly part of it. Your book is clearly part of the business. You do have some like you have team members now, I think a few
Yeah.
team
There's a
members
couple
that
of
are
us. We were just preparing for quarterly, which is Friday, and I let everybody know hiring strategy is the next thing for us next quarter. Like, what's our hiring plan? We've identified a couple of positions that we need to fill just based on volume and demand right now. So we're growing, and for us, it's about being very clear on who we are and how we attract the right people. But for us, people have to love the trades. We've had people work on the team that didn't love the trades, and it does not work out. So we're
sure.
growing there. But yeah, so the book is part of the strategy. What's interesting though about books, especially ones that involve people and the job market, is a lot's happened since that
Yeah,
book
it
was written.
changes. I know. Yeah, yeah. I
So
was thinking that.
fast. It's like
Yeah.
it's almost like writing a book on AI, but not quite, right?
Yeah, not quite. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's probably some more like fundamental truths that don't change as rapidly with the book and with
but
hiring,
but
but
that
I
book
get it.
got locked at the end of 2021. Like we were done. It didn't come go out go launch until 2023. And so
Hmm.
now that book's like 4 years old. So
Hmm.
there have been some things that have changed. We've evolved. LinkedIn strategy. So people that follow me on LinkedIn, I put a ton of tools and tips and one-liners and things like out
Okay,
there
good.
just
That's
to
good to know.
just to let them know. So if you follow
Yeah.
me on LinkedIn, you'll get a lot of our not our ninja tools. I call them ninja tools because if you're not trained in them, you're going to hurt yourself or someone. But the little stuff,
Yeah.
the easy stuff, right? So we put that out there, and then we have a whole library of content. I've got Titans of the Trades. I guest a lot where I share a lot of tidbits and nuggets. So a lot of good content out there. But yeah, the company's growing, and I love it.
How do you do so with the company growing and seeing possibility for the future to be more helpful? How do you do vision? So there's a book called Vivid Vision by
Yep.
Cameron Herold. Yeah, I'm smiling,
Yep.
so you know that one. Vivid Vision, and then I just had a client today who's in landscaping and construction of the trades. He runs a marketing firm, Jack Justice, and wrote a book called well, he wrote one called Get Found Online, but then he wrote one called The Tree of Good Fortune. And much like with your work, the Tree of Good Fortune now is a few years old and a lot has changed in marketing. So he's working on a rewrite of that book. But thinking about vision, entrepreneurs, the vision expands, it grows, it changes. Um, we have the book by Cameron Herold called Vivid Vision, which you said you're familiar with. Some of the business builders use that as a basis to really paint a clear picture. Another guy, Jack Justice, who's in landscaping, that reminds me of you with some of the books that he does, but he has stayed in the marketing realm. He was just telling me a little while ago about his EOS, and he's working on a 10-year. What do things look like in 10 years?
Yeah.
So how do you do that? How do you paint a vision, and then how do you communicate that to your team?
Most people have heard of Jim Collins' Good to Great. And
Hmm.
he talks about one of the most important things that you can do is get the right people in the right seats on the bus. And
Hmm.
if you look at that analogy and you really dig into it, he's talking about your leadership team because you have the people making the decisions on the bus. That's the right people. And for us, the way we do vision is, and this is the way I do it with my team, and this way we teach it with our clients, is you've got the 4 or 5 people on the bus that are in the right seats, the executive team. And then Jim Collins moves on to other things, hedgehog concept and a bunch of other things that he talks about in Good to Great. But what he fails to mention is that you got an empty bus. You got to put people on. And
Right.
so what I'm more focused on is less of my vision or more of the just cause that I want and more focused on how can an employee, an individual on the front line, an hourly worker who's just getting started, how can they buy into the vision? They don't care about revenue. They don't care about growth. They don't care about that. They care about what's in it for them. So we have to be able to show that to them. And so when we do vision, we think of where's that bus going? And are they excited to be on the bus when it breaks down, when there's a detour, a traffic jam, when there's a delay? Or are they going to get off the bus and help you get the bus back on the road? Or are they going to get off the bus and go find another bus that's going where they want? So for us, it's about incredible clarity about your vision. Where are you going? And I like to have a metric, some sort of number that describes our vision, because then I know when we get there. Unlike Simon Sinek's Just Cause, or even some of the elements of Vivid Vision, which is a great clarity picture, but how do you know when you get there? Because that's what I think the hourly frontline, brand new to the company employee is excited about, is how do we know when we get there? So uh, we come up with really short, very crystal clear vision statements, and then we teach the leadership team how to not only promote it and communicate it, but think of it as a marketing tool internally. How do you get people excited to stay on the bus? And that's what we use vision for, more than some of the other stuff. We talk a little bit about vision and how we attract people, but people aren't usually attracted to where the company's going. They're only attracted to that once they're on the bus.
Sure.
So but you got to be clear. I've got a little cartoon that I share of a guy saying, "Who wants to go skiing?" As the vision. We're going skiing. And you got three guys with their snow skis and their snow bibs, and they're like, me, me, me. And then you got three guys in board shorts and their water skis, and they're like,
Right.
me, me. Well, we weren't clear. And so what happens is both groups get on the bus. We go up to the mountaintop, planning on going water skiing, or sitting there freezing their tails off. And the leadership team is like, what is wrong? These guys were so great in the interview. They were awesome. I thought they were going to crush it. And now they're sitting there just shivering like wimps. Well, because they weren't bought into your vision, and you need to make that part of the interview process because you weren't clear. And then what happens? A bus pulls up and says, we're going water skiing. And they get off your bus and they go over there. And what do we do as leaders? Whew, dodged a bullet. Those guys left. I didn't have to fire them. Gosh, I made a mistake on that one. I should have never hired them. No, your mistake was you weren't clear on your vision. You sold it to the wrong group of people. But all the time we say nobody wants to work, everybody's lazy, but it's not that. They're not aligned to our vision. I'm excited about where we're going.
Right. Hey, last question, Brian. Business Builder Camp, our group, one of the things we try to focus on, and it gets discussed in the mastermind groups a lot, is making sure the business that you're building really serves like your life and the life that you want to have, not the other way around. How do you integrate and create core matters in your business to also be the Ryan Englin that you want to be, whether that is family or community or just joy and happiness, etc. How does that all get integrated for
I'll
you?
tell you what I told my high school guidance counselor. I want freedom of time, right? And that means that when we're done here in a few minutes, I can walk out that door and I can go hug my kids and go play ball with my son for 30 minutes before my next meeting. For me, I get to work from home. I get to have that freedom to where if I need to take a day off, I've got a team that can help me do it. But I would say the one thing that I do to make sure this business serves me, because I know that, and I see this happen a lot, I know that hiring massive amounts of people, especially if you don't have a strong leadership team to support them, can actually make business harder. So we are always looking at ways to increase efficiency or automate things or bring technology in so that we can stay a lean team and still produce at a very high level. And what's nice about that is computers don't sleep, they don't take time off, they don't call in sick, they don't do those things. So as we build the business, we're always looking for ways to increase efficiencies so that we are less chained to our desk or chained to a client project, and we have more of that focus and that freedom.
Awesome. So we do a thing called virtual campfire. We just did one today, and we had a expert speaker come and share a bit of their story. And then we had other people around. When I say virtual campfire, they're on the Zoom screen. And every now and then I put a fire background so it looks like we're having a real virtual campfire.
I love it.
But it's more of a conversation between business owners and a storyteller, somebody who shows up to tell their story at the fire. So would you be willing to do that sometime
I,
with our group?
I tell people one of my favorite things to do is the fireside chat. I just love it. Like we come in and we just have a conversation around a campfire and just talk about whatever we need to talk about. That's what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you'd share a little bit for 20 minutes. And what are things that people who come could ask you in the remaining time? Like why should they come?
Yeah. I think there are a lot of times people don't know who to ask when they have certain people problems. They don't know who to go to. They've got trusted advisors. They've got people on their team that all shrug their shoulders and go, I don't know how to deal with this either. And short of a Google search and who knows what you're going to get, they don't know what to ask. So I would say people that are really focused on, hey, I've got this one thing that I've been dealing with and I don't know how to solve it. We can talk through some ways to do that. So think about those people problems that keep you up at night that you're either afraid to, or for whatever reason are avoiding solving it. You're just kind of turning a blind eye to it, turning your back to it. You're dealing with it, tolerating it. Those are the questions I love to get.
Good. So we'll do that sometime as well.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Ryan.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you for tuning into the Business Builder Way podcast. If this episode spoke to you, click that subscribe button and share it with a friend. That's how this message gets out into the world. If it is helpful for us to have a short conversation, I'd love to do that. Send me an email at wayne@businessbuildercamp.com.